All right, I will call this meeting to order. This is the Pewaukee School District Board meeting for Monday, October 27th. I will start with roll call. Mary?
Here.
Travis?
Here.
Stacy?
Here.
Ashley?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Thank you. Was the meeting properly noticed?
The meeting was properly noticed.
And can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose.
And we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, tonight in Spotlight on Learning, we have Asa Clerk here. So, Katie, I'm going to let your group come up to the mic and get started.
Got shocked. Hello, we are the 7th grade science and social studies teacher, currently in world geography. And so we started our Latin America project teaching students basics about Latin American culture and communication. And so then the students got to choose a project. So we'll tell you a little bit more about.
All right, so UDL, which is a really important philosophy that we are using, it stands for Universal Design for Learning. And so what we try to do is we provide different methods for students to either learn the information or also prove to us they understand the information. And so we use that as we developed our Latin America final unit, and basically it kind of talks about that we were wanting them to communicate ideas effectively for demonstration. They also then not only presented to us as 7th graders, but we invited the 3rd graders over and they presented to them as well. So they had to come up with 2 different audience pieces. And that was a little bit different because 7th grade has a little bit more. They can stand things a little bit longer than 3rd grade and they have to be more engaged. So it was kind of interesting for them to come up with some more engaging activities for them. And then with that, they got a menu. I don't know if you want to show them the menu. And this was just like looking at Latin America, so learning the culture of Latin America in the way they wanted to do that. They could pick any country they wanted, and then they could decide any kind of profession, career, how they wanted to learn the culture, and those were some of the choices that they could pick from. And then we brought some students along, and they all kind of picked a different path, and so we wanted to show that to you guys.
Okay.
So when we allow students to choose, they have a lot of different options and they get really engaged with becoming that painter or that athlete. And this is often one of their favorite projects of the year because they get to learn in a way that makes sense to them. And it's just more engaging for them than traditional methods of this is the way you learn, this is how you show your learning with a test. This was a much more creative way to show the standards. Here are some samples of projects in the past. So some students are architects and build some really cool 3D models that talk, and then they talk about how it's built or the history of it or why it's important to their culture. On the right-hand side, 2 students made a wardrobe. And so there were traditional clothing styles as well as current clothing styles that you might find in Latin America and what the colors represent and why they wear such vibrant colors for traditional clothing. So we have some student volunteers who have brought their projects along with us. There will be one in this room, one in the library, and then one here, so you can make your way around and take a look at what they've built for you.
And ask any questions you have.
Are we staying here or are they going?
All right, well, thanks so much for going to visit some of the student presentations. As you heard Amy and Casey describe, the standard is what we teach to, but if the standard doesn't say that you have to write, we try to provide students choice in ways that they can demonstrate their learning, so that really matches the modality. So you saw architect, right? Artists and musicians who really were able to dive into their learning through that lens. And then you also heard a little bit about how they had to tailor what they knew to different audiences, which shows that depth of understanding, so that way they're not just regurgitating it to each group, but they really had to tailor it for both third graders, seventh graders, and then some adults as well for tonight. So if you guys have any questions for myself, Casey or Amy, or our students, we've got 1 or 2 minutes here to answer your questions.
One quick one. You said test to the standard. What standard are you teach? What standard are you teaching to?
Communicating effectively. So they were communicating to different audiences, but also examining cultural patterns, human geography around the world. So learning about the history of the culture and how it transitions into today.
Are these the 12 standards that you're referencing?
Those
Or-
are 2 of our priority standards.
So they're not the DPI ones?
They're the ones that are set by the state. They're the priority standards for 7th grade social studies.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
You got.
Students, how many of you prefer projects like this versus sitting and working through worksheets or taking tests?
Yeah. Well, I have to say I was very impressed with our presentation, your artwork. Again, I'm blown away. It looks like the original painting. So talented. And obviously, I think, going to Stacey's question, I think when students are given choice and we get them out of that normal mold and bring something different in, it just feels like it always enhances learning. So. Any questions from anyone else?
Thank you for coming in.
All right. Tammy, do we have any comments from citizens? No comments from citizens. All right, thank you. Next, salutes and recognitions. I'm going to start with the board. Does anyone from the board have a salute? Larry?
So last week, Tuesday, help me out with this, Anthony, the Pewaukee High School, in conjunction with the Junior Achievement Group, hosted Career Day, and I think there was something like 40 different presentations on career opportunities that were provided by people from the community that were involved in that. So I know the high school counselors and folks were extensively involved in that, but to think that we had 40 different people come in and speak to students about career opportunities, I thought was pretty impressive, so.
Yeah, I mean, it is a heavy lift for the high school counselors, and it's a busy day. It's a little bit different than the normal schedule, but yeah, Larry, I would agree with you that it's a great opportunity for community members to come in and to participate with our kids and opening their eyes to some of the options that are out there.
I heard that there was a big disappointment that the dog trainer did not show up or was not available.
I did not hear
so.
that.
Anything else from the board? How about admin?
John?
All right, thank you. Next, consent agenda. We need to accept the minutes from previous meetings on October 13th. Correspondence that was included in your packet, and also the policies that were listed there. We are seeking to accept those as well. So if I can get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Next, we move on to new business. First, we have Minnesota.
Where'd that come from?
I was born and raised in Minnesota, but I don't know why that came out. Wisconsin Forward Data and Assessment Report. We've got Candace online with us, and we've got Anthony here. I'm excited to go through this.
Yeah, I'll hand things off to Candace here, and she can kind of give you the overview. I know that you got a detailed summary that was sent out in the board packet as well. So Candace, the floor is yours.
All right, so yep, we're going to talk about the Wisconsin Forward Assessment. This is the state assessment that students take in grades 3 through 10. It's divided into 4 different subjects, and so among those subjects, different grades take different subjects. The English Language Arts is taken in grades 3 through 8. Math is taken in grades 3 through 8. Science is taken in grades 4 and 8. And Social Studies is taken in grades 4, 8, and 10. And so that's where you'll just see a little bit of different results as you look through. Any of the summary information is that it's very grade dependent. There are 2 additional scores provided. There's a writing and a reading score that's broken out from the English Language Arts score. And the performance levels on the Wisconsin Forward Assessment are the Wisconsin Assessment Performance Levels. And so these performance levels are going to be aligned to the Wisconsin state standards and describe how students are doing on those standards. In the statewide rankings, the percent of students in the meeting or advanced category on English Language Arts, the Pewaukee School District was in the top 10% for 2025. That is a slight dip from 2024 at 9%. In math in 2025, it was the top 8%, and that is a slight increase from 2024 at 9%. So really staying about in the same place in both English Language Arts and math for the district across the state. When we look at the trends for grades 3 through 8 in English Language Arts, as you can see, there's only 2 years of data here. It's important to keep in mind that in 2024, the Wisconsin Forward exam in the English Language Arts underwent substantial changes. In addition to that, when we get to math as well, the benchmarks were changed in English Language Arts and math through the Wisconsin committee process that determines where those cut scores really are for students to be considered performing meeting or advanced on standards associated on the Wisconsin Forward exam. So when we look at the English Language Arts, when we look at grades, all of them really, we're kind of seeing like small fluctuations at this time. Grade 8 really being the only one that's really standing out with a strong increase, moving from 68.7% to 74.7% in the year time. And then grade 4 with kind of a decrease. So again, they're balancing each other out as far as the entire district goes, and then the other grades are having minor fluctuations as well. When we look at the math data, there's a little bit of a different trend going on. When we look at grades 4, 5, and 6, we can see more of a decrease in the percent of students considered meeting in advanced. In 4th grade, for example, moving from 76.9% to 66%. The gaps being a little bit lower in 5th and 6th grade. And then in grades 3, 7, and 8, the opposite trend. So we see some more of those substantial gains in those grade levels, particularly in grade 8, which went from 23-24 at 76.2% to 88.1% of students considered meeting or advanced. And so those are the summaries of those trends we just talked about, with English Language Arts mostly stable, grade 8 standing out a little bit. Math, grades 4, 5, and 6 declining percents of students meeting or advanced. Grades 7, 3, 8, and 3 increasing percent of students meeting or advanced. And then we have some action plans from this data at Horizon School that Anthony is going to talk about.
Yeah, so part of the process that we have in place is each summer we get a team together. We do it for both English Language Arts and math, and it's a data retreat, so we dig into some of the data from the year prior, and then based on that, each of the building principals work with their staffs to identify some specific action steps for the upcoming school year. So Christy's here as well, so if there's specific questions about Horizons Action Plan, she is here to answer any questions. But really, they have an identified priority goal in both reading and math. Each of the buildings has a building goal focused on literacy, and that is the connection to our strategic plan goal that we have as a district focused on specifically reading. We talked a little bit about professional learning communities at a prior meeting. They're running those bi-weekly to get teams of teachers talking about teaching, and more importantly, is it having an impact on student learning? And then working through the student-centered MTSS process so that there is consistent core instruction for students, monitoring of progress. And then really looking at, and Christy's a great resource for this, but with regards to literacy, we obviously, as Act 20 has become part of our lives, there's been a heavy focus on phonics. And as you increase, we did not have a great resource for our 4th and 5th graders when it comes to phonics instruction. So that is something that was implemented at Horizon starting this year for 4th and 5th graders specifically. The 3rd graders were already getting it.
I think that goes to, I mean, you can notice that out of all the grades, the 4th grade is, and I know sometimes we say there's these cohort groups that sometimes they're just offset from other grades. Do we think that's the case, or was there something in there where this grade was affected by COVID and their learning gap, or do we have any thoughts as to why we think that is?
And Candace, feel free to chime in, but I asked Candace the same question because there have been times in the past where we have had a cohort that just actually did perform a little bit lower when compared to the other cohorts across the district. And Candace, correct me, your response was that the 4th grade, that is not the case for the 4th grade. However, if the trend were to continue, it may end up being a group that just performs differently than the other cohorts. Is that correct, Candace?
That is correct, Anthony. Yes, their 3rd grade performance was not necessarily anything alarming that suggested they would be lower. However, with their 4th grade performance, if it doesn't kind of turn around, we would, yes, anticipate them to be a little bit more of a struggling group that just needs a little more attention.
And I think, Christy, you may want to speak to the testing environment as well, because there were some interruptions to testing this year.
Yeah, so the testing environment was just a little bit challenging, particularly for that 4th grade group. We did have the 2 dates of the lockdowns that occurred last school year. And during both of those testing dates were when 4th grade was doing, when both occurred were when 4th grade was doing their testing.
Sure.
So maybe a reason, maybe not, but
Yeah.
Definitely a group that we're continuing to monitor.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
I do have to say, with my daughters in 5th grade and with teacher conferences, just talking to the teacher and seeing the differences in what they're doing and getting the explanation too of how they're incorporating phonics. I mean, I do have to say, I feel like you guys are doing a really great job bridging the gap from, because I know we talked about this last meeting about, kind of that 4th grade class didn't get the phonics Act 20 stuff, but it looks like they're doing more of that stuff that's incorporated in that 5th grade class. So, and I actually have some questions for you, Katie, too, about middle school and that kind of stuff. But.
Yeah, and we're definitely noticing a difference already. Teachers are seeing that their students are starting to apply some of the spelling patterns that we're talking about a lot more, and really recognizing some of the things that they didn't and hadn't learned in the past.
So it'll be interesting to see how the changes occur with those grades getting more of that phonics in their curriculum.
Thanks, Christy. Yeah, and then hopping over to the middle school, if you look at the action steps here for the middle school, there are a couple that are the same as Horizon's action steps with regards to the first 2 bullets. ASA also has a goal that's focused specifically on reading, and then a separate one for math achievement, with then a sub-goal that's focused on specifically students that receive special education support and closing some achievement gaps. They also have a focus on professional learning communities. But differently, there are a couple of things that I think the team is excited for this year. We had our first professional development day losing track of time here, or 2 Fridays ago. And we have one group, we have all of our 6 through 12 ELA teachers that will engage in professional development over the course of the school year. And it really is focused on those high leverage workshop literacy practices. We had done that training prior, and we have had some turnover in the last 8 to 10 years since that training happened. So that's just an opportunity for them to kind of reground those practices. And then we're doing the same thing for 6-12 math teachers as well, and offering a math-specific professional development opportunity to focus on teaching strategies. And then Katie does a great job with the team as far as using some real-time data to be responsive to students. And I think I brought it up last time. Larry asked Brian Sniff a question about I think it was discipline data, and he was able to quickly access that data. ACE is doing a great job of using our new data management tool to get really good data in the hands of the right people so that they can make an impact.
So Katie, kind of talking about the phonics stuff, I guess I'm curious, and Anthony, I don't know if you want to chime in too, but are we bridging the gap there for those students who also haven't gotten any of that stuff, and with the things changing now in elementary school and moving into that K through 12, and I know you're not 9 through 12, but
Yeah.
in ASA, I'm just kind of curious, are we doing anything there to kind of help bridge that gap and help those kids?
We're really in inquiry mode. And what I mean by that is in middle school, you start to read to analyze as opposed to read to comprehend and decode and be a fluent reader, right? But we know those needs are still there. We switched from STAR as our progress monitoring to Ames Web, which has a couple of different probes, one of which being silent reading fluency, which is not something that we have assessed in the middle school. As a 3rd and 4th grade teacher, I would sit next to students and listen to them read and be able to analyze the mistakes they were making, and that would inform me as their instructor at 8 and 9 years old. That probe from Ames Web prompts teachers to do a second testing that's an oral reading fluency, so the same type of assessment where it's one-on-one then with the teacher, and they're able to listen and decode and figure out what those concerns are with the students reading. And then it's bolstering the PD of our middle school staff, who half are secondary trained and half are elementary trained, to be able to know the strategies to deploy to help bridge that gap. So really, we're excited about utilizing Ames Web and learning about the tools within it, so that way it will give us more information on what to help students with, and it will allow us to be strategic in the professional development that we engage our staff on.
Yeah, and I think Katie made a great point. If you really look at the ELA standards that the state of Wisconsin has set, there is a big transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, and it really is that, learning to read, transitioning to reading to learn. But there are students that have struggles when it comes to those specific areas. There was a lot of training that our elementary teachers did and our elementary administrators that was required per Act 20. And we had a great facilitator on high leverage literacy strategies for students, specifically focused on some decoding and things like that. She's actually with us this year on professional development days, working specifically with our secondary special education teachers and interventionists, because that's a group that they do have really good training, but that is more of an elementary type skill set, but it can definitely be applicable for them and the students that they're working with.
I think the other thing I want to highlight too, Ashley, is that reading doesn't just happen in ELA, and so our social studies and science team has done a really great job of, decoding unknown words in social studies and science texts, or engineering. Scott does a great job of front-loading some vocabulary, and you'll see word walls in there too. There was a recent, and I'm not going to be able to pull the exact quote or the exact data measure, but about the impact of vocabulary and reading instruction outside of a reading class when you are dosing it across the day as opposed to just plugging it into 80 minutes, the output that has. So Dave Zindler's been instrumental in our school-wide vocabulary program and just disciplinary literacy strategies. So when we talk about literacy data, we really talk about it holistically. There's explicit instruction that happens in English language arts, but that's, a shared responsibility of all staff because we're readers in whatever content that we're, diving into.
And how often is the Ames Web stuff? Because I have seen the I know my daughter brought one home already, and I was looking at that, but how, is it the same as like the STAR?
It's 3 times per year, but that's, something that we can deploy as needed as well. So students that are in intervention are progress monitored every 2 weeks. Staff members that are deploying an intervention as a classroom teacher can also deploy that. It's a way for us to know the impact of our instruction. To Anthony's point, that's why we PLC, is to talk about, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm gonna do, let me come back to my team and talk about the impact that had on student learning. And if it's not working, I've got a team to supply me with new ideas. If it is working, we all high five each other and say, what's next?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candace.
Yeah, thank
You're
you,
very welcome.
Candace.
Let me know if anything comes up. Have a wonderful day.
Thank
too.
you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to John because we're going to talk through the tax levy and the tax rate report and consideration.
If it's okay with the board, we'll touch base on the next 2 items, both the budget adjustments and the adoption of the budget, and then how the related tax levy and the impact of that is. That'll be followed with 2 motions. So at our preliminary, in our preliminary budget presentation and at the annual meeting, we talked about what were some of the factors that would impact the final budget and what is the timing for when those would be available. One of the typical every year, 3 key dates. You have your 3rd Friday September count for your pupil count that makes the official count for your revenue limit. You have your certification of values that comes around the 1st of October, and you have the certification of equalization aid for the district on October 15th. So we have all those 3 pieces of data, and now we bring the final budget to the board for action and the subsequent tax levy that's adopted to support that budget. The biggest variable this year that was outstanding going into the process was the state budget itself. Every 2 years we have a biennial budget, and we have to make projections as to what is going to happen in that state budget process. So I want to highlight 5 items that were the largest impact ones from that state budget process and the impact it had on the district. First of all, districts around the state were uniform in requesting additional resources be provided for funding the cost, offsetting the cost of special education of students with disabilities and providing the services that are required under the IDEA. That did have a positive impact from the state budget. Last year we were at about 29% reimbursed as a district. It was projected in the state budget additional funding would get us to about 42% funded of those costs. Now we just have to wait and see. It's based on a reimbursement from the prior year cost. Once all those costs are reported, are we still going to hit the 42%, or is it going to be prorated to a number that's smaller than that in the budget? But it is a significant increase. Another impact is open enrollment. The reimbursement rate that districts pay to each other for open enrollment students who attend. So for each student who attends our district, we get paid from the district of residence that they attend. Likewise, our students who go out. We had net about 230 open enrollment students, and that rate increased almost $1,000 this year for the reimbursement. So it had a positive impact on our budget. On the flip side of it, a couple of things that we had projected in our budget. We had an increase to the revenue limit, which restricts the amount of state aid and taxes combined that we can have. It increased the limit we projected of about $415. $325 was in statute, and we had projected another $90, which was based on CPI and funding at the level of CPI. The $90 didn't materialize, so we had to reduce what we had planned for our revenues for the year to offset that. We also had a property tax exemption, a personal property tax exemption that was enacted 2 years ago, or a year ago in the budget. That was outside of our revenue limit, so it was additional resources that we would have that through the adoption of this state budget was put within the revenue limit. So it drove property tax relief, but did not give us, it reduced our spendable resources by the amount that we had the previous year. And then finally, probably the biggest impact we had, not on an overall budget standpoint, but on the makeup of the levy and the state aid. For the first time since 2008, 2009, the state did not add any additional funding to the equalization aid formula. Again, the combination of equalization aid plus property taxes funds the revenue limit for the district. With no increase to aid means that the entire $325 per pupil increase gets put on the local taxpayers. So it's estimated by the Fiscal Bureau that the impact was going to be about 7% average statewide of an impact on tax bills this fall. So overall, a lot of changes. The net result from a budget standpoint, our operating budget, our original budget, which will be adopted tonight by the action, is a reduction from our preliminary operating budget of about $180,000 for operations in the 25-26 school year. I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions on that. You have a lot of detail in the information I provided. Second item I'd like to address is the overall tax levy and the impact on the tax levy. So our overall tax levy for the district for 25-26 is proposed to be set at $28,406,228. That amount is an increase of about 2.84% from the levy in the 24-25 school year. That is the first increase in 5 years of the amount of the levy in the district, and it is directly attributable to that lack of state aid. When no aid was put in the pot, property taxes make up the difference on that. Within that levy, there are 4 different components to it. First one is the general fund levy, which funds most of the operations of the district. In Pewaukee, we have high property values, and the distribution of the equalization aid for the state is highly contingent on the value that you have behind each student of property. It's property based. So with high property values, we get less aid. We use a lot more, in Pewaukee, a lot higher rate of taxes to pay for operations of the district than districts with lower valuations. We have our debt service levy within that overall levy. We have a capital projects levy that is acted on at the annual meeting as a separate adoption to maintain funding. It's our fiduciary fund. It's if we have emergency breakdowns or services, we have something to fall back on. It's a safety net for facilities and capital projects. And finally, our community service levy, which represents the cost of our school resource officers that are processed through there. Any questions? With that, in the information I provided, there's 2 recommended motions that we would go through for the budget adoption and the tax levy.
I move to recommend that the Board of Education approves a tax levy of $28,401,994. Not right? Sorry. Thank you. The correct number is $28,406,228 for all funds for the 2025-2026 year as described.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose.
Do the next one?
Yeah, you can take that one.
Okay, I move to approve the revised original budget for 2025-26 as presented and include a copy of the attached budget summary in the official meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Next, we want to talk about Start College Now, early college credit applications. We were given information in our packet. Anthony, I'll let you speak to this.
Yeah, so similar to in the past, you guys end up seeing this 3 times over the course of the year. State of Wisconsin Act 59 allows high school students to access college level classes. I included in the packet the information regarding that, but we have 13 students that have completed applications for Start College Now through WCTC, and then we have 2 students that have filled out applications for early college credits, and that was through UW-Milwaukee and then UW Independent Learning. So would be looking for a motion to approve.
Anthony, could you confirm 70% of our students graduate with college credit?
Well, I know I had sent that out. Actually just had it up. Let me pull that back up. I had shared last year's data with the board. I think that was 2 meetings ago. Yeah, my internet is not loading right now, but I can get that number for you. But we have a high percentage of students that have either leave Pewaukee High School with already obtained college credit or some type of industry certification.
Okay, so it's over 50%,
I think it's over 50%.
a large
but
margin.
I can get it here in a second.
The other thing is, do you have the list of college courses that are taken?
Like a master list?
Yes, not student attached, but just what's being taken and that credits associated with that, so you get a big chunk of
I mean,
Pewaukee issued, Pewaukee students.
we could easily
graduate.
put
Yeah.
that together. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my goal and if you look at this, the format is a little bit different with the way I had the students separated on those tabs. I'd like to just keep adding tabs each time so we can go and look at historical data and what classes and things like that kids are taking. But yeah, we can absolutely put a master list together.
Okay, so that would be the basis for the percentage,
Yep.
the 70, which is what I thought Mike said earlier, but whatever it is, that's where that comes from.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Anthony.
In the summary that you provided, I mean, students have a choice. They have like 2 or 3 courses that they potentially can take, but I mean, ultimately, you're looking for what they actually did take then?
She would just be looking at, so let's say the percentage is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, is, 65% of our
Right.
students get college credit. Just a list of like what those college credit courses are, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
And then the number of students that take it, so that the 70% derives from that, whatever that percentage is, can be derived from that.
So-
You just give me the list of the courses, we wouldn't know the
Class of
percentage.
2025, 65% of the students graduated having earned college credit, while 22% had graduated with some type of industry certification.
Thank you.
Yep. So looking for a motion to approve the early college credit and start college credit now.
I have another question.
Yep.
So I noticed it seemed like there was more student applications this time around. Sometimes we maybe have just a couple classes. And I was noticing some of those classes, like for instance, there was culinary classes, and I was just curious if, like our new culinary center and some of the new trades areas that we've recently opened up for our students, do you think that has spurred our students on to want to take a more diverse type of class that goes along with some of that we're offering here?
Possibly, and if you look through the list of classes, they are higher level. There were some culinary ones in there. There were definitely there's some construction, some electrician courses.
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I do think that with the new space and the new classes, like in the spring, you'll hear about some of the new tech ed classes that are going to be offered at the high school. I do think it's going to drive increased interest.
Yeah, it's great. All right, can I get a motion on this?
Move to approve the Start College Now early college credit applications as presented for semester 2 of the 25-26 school year.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
All right, next, the resolution authorizing a taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes. That's a mouthful.
So this is an annual annual action that the board is presented with. Over the history of the last 20 years in the district, we have been very successful of building our reserves in the district in order to reduce our reliance on short-term borrowing. As a district that's heavily reliant on property taxes, the first installment of taxes doesn't come to the district until the third week of January. So we have to rely on our own fund balance or reserves up until that point, along with whatever revenues trickle in at the start of the year. That leaves you in a negative cash position as the closer you get to January. So each year we have issued, in the past, we had issued a tax and revenue anticipation note and borrowed the funds for a year to be able to cover all those deficits. This marks the third year that we've gone with a line of credit. So we've been able to significantly reduce the impact of interest costs on our operating budget by taking out short windows of draws on this line of credit during the times when we had the biggest cash shortfalls as a district. We upped the amount last year to $2 million as we're in a self-funded environment, just to give that added safety net if in case we have a bad claims month or bad claims come through until we're reimbursed. So for this recommendation, we negotiated with Town Bank, the Wintrust Company, this year on renewal of the note. They've held it for the last 2 years and present that to the board for approval for the line of credit.
Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve a resolution authorizing a taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes in an amount not to exceed $2 million with Town Bank N.A., a Wintrust community bank.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Next, personnel issues, and we have no resignations, employments, or leave of absence. So moving on from there, upcoming activities. So our next board meeting is Monday, November 10th. That's a regular board meeting and business affairs, followed by a board meeting on Monday, the 24th of November, which is policy committee and a regular board meeting. And the school CIRs will be that evening. So expect a longer meeting. December, we originally had December 1st slotted and set aside for a learning session. We do not need a learning session at this point, so Mike and I talked and we took that off the table. So for the month of December, we only have one meeting. Right now, it is scheduled for Monday, December 8th. I talked it over with Mike, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. Would the board consider doing that meeting on Monday, December 1st? It would be our only board meeting of the month, and that would leave us free the rest of December.
Can we do it? Will it work?
From a bills payable standpoint, yes, it'll shorten the cycle by 1 week. We do have our audit report that night when the auditors come in, so we'd have to confirm with them the availability to present any audit findings or any audit report to the board.
Okay.
But should be available.
Okay. Is anyone, we were just looking at a way to free up the board, especially in the month of December, which I don't know about you guys, but my calendar is already going crazy, so. I'll just wait to hear back from you, John.
So John, are we approving the November checks
Correct.
on December 1st? Then they'll be good to go on that 24-hour notice. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that is it on that. Next, any comments from citizens, Tammy?
No comments from citizens.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll take a motion.
What about the delegate assembly?
Oh, legislative, sorry.
Legislative.
Not a lot going on right now, as I know Mike communicated last week on, again, the rehired annuitant bill and that being in committee and encouraging support for that legislation, as it provides a lot of flexibility for districts to address some of those hard to staff positions.
And then the delegate.
Yeah, so, it's that time of year where we have to appoint a delegate to the 2025 conference, the WASB conference. We always have someone go to that delegation meeting, and I know that Larry has offered to be available for that. Is anyone else interested?
I nominate Larry Dukes.
I think it's great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You're
Thank you,
it,
Larry,
Larry.
for doing that for us.
Okay, no comments from citizens. I wasn't really rushing to get out of here, I promise. Okay, then, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, guys.
Nice job.